What's up? What's up? What's up? So,
Hello.
this is a special edition of Date University with some substitute teachers. I'm Professor D. Bev, and with
Not
me is my lovely co host.
Anyah. I won't call myself a professor. I'm in training. So
Professors go to school too, so we're always learning. So,
right.
that's never learning is never a done thing. So, we are Dating University, where we discuss the good
The bad.
and the ugly of all
Yeah.
things dating and relationship. First time saying that. Pretty cool. I'm in my wine festival attire because it's officially spring, well, middle of spring, and this is what I call like the meeting new people season, and it's funny because looking at this season as a married man now, it don't have the same effect. But I do think about like when these days were going on when I was a single guy, and I was so optimistic every year because I knew that you know with the wine festivals going on, all the summer events, and all the social day drinking and whatnot, I was eventually going to meet somebody. So and most years I did. Most years I met some new people and I met some new ladies and whatnot. Did they work out? Most of them did not. But it was still fun meeting people and whatnot. So, since we're in that season, I just want to just pay homage to that real fast.
Yes.
So, I mean, how
Shout
was
out
this?
to the spring.
How was this? How is spring for you as a lady?
Um for me it's really, I don't know, it's just a time to like feel a little bit more rejuvenated. I want to be out and about. I'm personally not really dating right now. So, really, right now is just like a time to hang out with my friends and my family and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, it doesn't feel much different except for the weather is nice. Still just living
Mm,
life.
mm. That sounds like a good time, though. I mean,
Yeah.
spending time with friends and families and those that that love you. I mean, it's always a pleasure. Because some
Yeah.
people don't even have that much. Being
Yeah.
being appreciative to everyone that's in your circle. It's definitely a thing you want to do. You know.
Absolutely. Okay, we have to do a little disclaimer before we get into the show, right? Since we're
Yes.
guest professors.
Yes.
Okay.
So the videos that we're going to show are not the views and property of Dating University.
Correct.
We're just using them for examples on the point we're making.
Right. And even our own views and opinions that we share and talk about today. Like we said, we're guest professors today. So we're just talking, having fun, having a conversation, having a dialogue. And of course, just like when Brittany and Charles are here, we want y'all to chime in and weigh in and give us your opinions and feedback because, this is a live discussion. So, you know, blow up the comments, like the video, share it out, tell us what you think. So, what are we going to be discussing today?
We will be discussing gender roles in relationships. Now, I mean, this is something that I feel like we can go real deep on. I really feel like this is like one of the essence or one of the things that we're dealing with in dating today.
Mm-hmm.
So, one of the things about it that I find, uh, what I find uh kind of disturbing today is like I have to ask a lot of guys like, do you wear the pants in your relationship? I mean, you know, I think growing up, I always saw, of course, and I'm 45, so growing up in the 80s and whatnot, you see a lot of men being the head of the household. Like the family, like the family shows, like Cosby Show, Family Matters, stuff like that. The husband was the man going out working, and he's the you know head of the household. He gives advice and whatnot, and then the wife, I know with uh, Cosby Show, Claire was kind of more of the hard whip, you know,
Mm-hmm.
of the family. She was more disciplinary, and Heathcliff was. I mean, they both had a job, of course. They both had careers, but it seemed like you always saw Heathcliff, delivering a baby every once in a while in his basement and whatnot. And but the kids actually fit both parents equally. I mean, we can go back to the episode where I forgot what daughter it was, but she actually came to Baltimore and she had a whole big fun
Oh, Vanessa.
conversation. Yes. Oh my God.
Yeah,
The
she
look
had big fun in Baltimore.
and
I remember
the
that.
the look that Claire gave him, boy, that is a look that a
Yeah,
black
I think
mama
we've
would
all
give
seen
him.
that. If you have a black mother,
Yes,
you've
boy.
seen
You
some version of that look.
hmm you didn't even need a switch, boy. You just knew you in trouble.
Well, I guess in talking about, shows that we grew up on and things like that, I guess
Mhm.
to really tackle gender roles, let's go kind of back to the beginning. So, like, when were you first introduced to gender roles? Like, what age, what things do you remember growing up, aside from TV, but like real life examples in your own life and family dynamics or friends or whatever that really stuck out that you were like, okay, this is what boys are supposed to do, this is what girls are supposed to do, this is what women are supposed to do, this is what men are supposed to do.
I gotta say, I got introduced to gender roles at a very young age. Maybe like 5 or 6. Excuse me. And it wasn't like a sat down, boys do this, girls do
Do
that.
you
It
have
was
like a memory that sticks out to you, like something happened or some scenario or conversation happened?
um, this is very subtle, but
Mm-hmm.
I remember going to one of the quarter machines. The quarter machines, you got a little bubble with a toy in it,
Mm-hmm.
and I went to this little machine and they had like toys for boys, and then they had toys for girls, and like one of the girl toys was like a barrette, a hair barrette, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I hope I don't get that because that's for a girl. And I mean, that's a real subtle memory, but I mean, that's like the furthest I can think of when
Yeah.
it comes out to gender roles.
Yeah, like honestly, it's hard for me to like. I think I've had some things like that where certain toys or activities were very gendered growing up. Where it's like, oh, you can't play football with the boys. I remember one time I was playing like I don't know, probably tag or something like that with my cousins. And like in my family, we have like more boys than girls. So a lot of times it was
Okay.
us playing with the boys, me and one of my other girl cousins. And I got hurt and I busted my lip.
Hmm.
And I remember going to my mom's her significant other at the time because he was the one like home watching us or whatever,
Okay.
and he was like, well, that's what you get for playing with the boys. Like it was like no empathy or
Oh wow.
for whatever, like hurt that I had. He was just like, you should have been playing with them boys. You know what I mean? So that's
Hey.
kind of like one that like sticks out where it was like, you should be in the house, playing with dolls or like sitting quietly or something like that. You shouldn't be like outside running around.
Hmm.
Um, I think there were probably lots of instances like that growing up, but I think it wasn't probably until I was like a teenager where it became a little bit more um like apparent to me like what was going on in
Yeah.
terms of that. And I think I shared this story the last time I was on the show, but um like like I said, growing up, it was like me and one other girl cousin mainly. That was like, we were the two girls, and like the rest are like
Mm.
my brothers, my guy cousins or whatever. And when we were at my aunt's house, we were always the one that would really have to like clean up. The boys kind of just sat and chilled. They would have to take out the trash. That was their duty. But of course, you take out the trash what once a week, maybe
Yeah.
two times a
Hmm.
week. So otherwise, it was us having to like, you know, clean up the kitchen, do the dishes, mop the floors, sweep, wipe the counters, do all the things. And I'd just be like, hey, this isn't fair.
That was
You know,
not.
we were all like around, messing up the house the whole day. And then we would get woken up in the middle of the night, like, yeah, my kitchen's not clean. And the boys would be sleeping soundly, in the basement, chilling.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
That's interesting because in my family, it's a bunch of boys. On my mother's side of the family, it's a bunch of boys. Father's side of the family, it's a bunch of girls. That's around my niece's age. So me and my cousin was when we were living with my grandmother. She woke us up to wash the dishes before, So like
Okay.
because me and him were the oldest, we
Hmm.
had to wash dishes and clean up the house, stuff like that. So it wasn't a gender thing, but it wasn't a gender thing because we had a bunch of boys.
Yeah.
So the
So
same
there was
clean.
no alternative. So do
No,
you think had there been girl cousins around or girls in your family that they would have taken on that? Or do you think it still would have fallen on like an equal thing, just depending on
my
ages?
grandma did not care if you are if you are
Yeah, if
able
you
body, you
right,
are
then you
cleaning
need
up
to
the
get up and do
house.
something. Yeah,
Yes.
for sure. Yeah. And I appreciate that because I think it instills something in you at a young age to know that like everybody has a responsibility around
Yes.
here, even if you're a child, obviously you don't contribute financially to the house, but it's still up to you to participate in like the upkeep of the house. So it just, I think, creates a mentality that like everybody has to pitch in. It's not one person playing maid for everybody in the household, but some people were brought up like that. And so yeah.
I think it's interesting because um I can see how that can affect you growing up. You know,
Hmm.
to see your male cousins just sitting around, lounging around, and you're cleaning up behind them, and you guys are the same age.
Right.
And
Because we were.
you go outside and you go play football and you bust your lip, and it's like, well, you shouldn't have been playing football in the first place. And it's like, but that's what I want to do today.
Right.
I mean, you were allowed to play Tecmo Bowl and whatnot. I'm sure there's no video games that had to say, hey, are you a girl?
Right.
Yes. You're not allowed to play this. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, so I can see how that can happen.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's just interesting how those experiences sort of, like you said, just shape how we think, shape our outlook and perspective on things. Because I think I've come across, in dating, to bring it back to dating university, is like some men that were brought up similarly, where they feel like those roles are very defined in terms of gender, in terms of like, you know, taking care of the household and stuff like that. So I guess in our next point, we kind of laid the groundwork of like, our
Mhm.
history and upbringing and kind of what we saw. Well, I guess too, let me ask this. Like outside of that, maybe household things, financially growing up, did you see specific roles of like the man has to take care and provide and do all of the things like within your family and things like that?
So I had a favorite aunt that I was very close to, and I say favorite because well, we had a real close relationship, and
Mm-hmm.
she and her husband had their marriage was set up where he paid majority of the bills, and I mean I'm sure she paid some bills as well, but she always had always had money laying around. Well, not necessarily laying around, but she's always had money in her account and everything. So
Mm-hmm.
one year, my first year at Bowie, she loaned me I think $400 or $500, for me to go to school. And it was on a just a whim, just hey,
Right.
I had gotten a partial scholarship, and then I had
Mm-hmm.
gotten like a $200 scholarship from something about financial aid. I can't remember what it was, but I was short $500. I remember telling her, and she was like, "Oh, here you go. I send you the check." And I was like amazed, like, "Oh my god!" So we had a little bet while I was in school. Well, how many A's I made, she'll give me $20 per A. And did I hit them books, boy? I mean, I was trying my hardest. But yeah. So their dynamic was the father. paid all the bills, majority of the bills, and she paid some too. But she uh, definitely loaned money to her family. She, my mom, and our grandmother. You know, she was there for us in many ways. You know, financially, and you know, I was very thankful. They're very thankful for her. I'm still thankful for
Yeah.
her for everything she's done with us, done for us. So that was one aunt. Um, my other aunt, she had gotten separated before I really kind of knew dynamics of financial dating and whatnot. But it was a difference because she was a single mother, so she
Mm.
had to pay for everything, you know.
Right.
And yeah, so it was just her. Um, my mom was a single mother, and we've had times where we were okay, and then we had time we were just by that poverty line, boy, maybe been under a couple of times, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I seen my mom, you know, break her neck to pay these bills and whatnot, and then sometimes when she needed help, if I was able to help, you know, I was able to, and sometimes my aunt was able to help. But growing up, outside of looking at my aunt, who was basically the only one married the entire time, that was really the only example I got to see. So
Yeah.
I even asked her about the dynamic, and she told me, you know, she does pay like the BGE and bought food and things like that. When the husband, he paid the mortgage, and I think he paid some. They had two cars. They always had matching cars, and so I think he paid both the car notes and the insurance. So now the difference between them two was she had a higher degree than him. She had a master's degree. He only had
Mm-hmm.
associates, but he made more money than her. And
Mm.
you know that was just
Interesting.
the dynamics. I mean that alone is a whole other show by itself. But I
Yeah.
will give my uncle this flowers about this situation. She was going through a lot private, you know, in the private sector with her master's degree. Being a black woman with a master's degree was very threatening to other people. So they was giving her the whole runaround with things. So she came home to my uncle one day and said, "You know what? I'm tired of dealing with this. I'm tired of dealing with this borderline uh, hatred and whatnot." But she's like, "I just want to do daycare." And my uncle said, "You know what? Go ahead and do daycare. I got everything. I'll get everything else." And when he said that to me, I said, "That's the husband I want to be. I
Wow.
want to be the husband that can take over everything and give my wife a break. You know, because at times we need a break. You know, and
Yeah.
I'm very happy that he was that type of man, and I was able to see that in a man to put that forth in my life, and for that to be a goal. You know, it's
Yeah.
one thing to see it on TV, but it's another thing to see it in real life. You know.
Yeah. Because I think, like, even for people like us in our, I'm in my 30s or in your 40s, so we kind of grew up probably around the same sort of things on TV and things like that. It's like, it seemed very abstract. Um, when you look at like the Cosby Show and things like that, at least for me, just being a little black girl growing up in Baltimore City, that wasn't like the norm of what I saw like within my family. Um, so I don't know, like while it was like aspirational in a sense, it wasn't like, because it still wasn't the norm. It's like, okay. And I feel like now the younger kids have social media where it's like they see the dynamics of celebrities and influencers and things like that to kind of look to as like a model, like we would with like TV shows back in the day.
Of course, yeah.
um for me, I think like if I look at the dynamics of like my parents, like they were divorced, both remarried. My dad, honestly, when I was growing up, I literally thought that my dad paid all the bills. It wasn't
Hmm.
until I was an adult and I literally sat down and had a conversation with my dad and my stepmom,
Hmm.
and they shared to me that they were both, you know, paying the bills. And there was like a little bit of shock there because that's just what I believed. I don't know. I guess it's because like when we went out, my dad would pay for everything or things like that. So I
Right.
didn't understand the dynamics within the household. Like maybe he did feel like, okay, if I have my kids with me and we're doing stuff, like, yeah, I'm gonna pay. That makes sense. So I never really
Mhm.
even thought about that. I was just like, oh, okay, he's paying for everything. And they were like, no, that's not how it worked. Um yeah, and with my mom, even though like she's remarried now, she did have a period of time where she was a single mom and things like that. So obviously then she's, paying things on her own. um I just saw my mom do a lot, growing up. So um and then I guess my other models were like my aunts and things like that. And yeah, everybody just had their own very specific dynamics, and I can't really say that there were any that I saw that I wanted to necessarily model for myself. They were just like examples to me of like, okay,
Right.
these are relationships. But there wasn't anything in particular that I was like, yeah, I want this to kind of be my
Right.
dynamic, like you were saying with your
Okay.
aunt and your uncle. So
I
yeah.
mean, we can't help the family we're in, and shout out to the strong mothers. I mean, mothers is going to teach you how to survive. They're going to teach you how to be strong and whatnot, and to be independent. And I mean, if that's all you got growing up, I mean, I think you got a pretty good foundation. All right,
Yeah,
just
I feel like it was a wide variety. Like I had like one aunt that, she's been married. I think she just posted about her anniversary, and I don't know how long. Now I'm gonna embarrass myself because I can't remember how long they've been married. It's been
so
a long time. They've had a long relationship. My aunt even gave him her kidney. He needed
oh
a new
wow,
kidney. So I was like, that's awesome.
that
That
is a
she
good
that
life.
she was even a match. Like I love that about their story. And this was like
Hmm.
maybe within the past like 10 years or something like that.
Okay,
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess maybe it just as a teenager, I just wasn't really checking for the adults in my life to necessarily model anything to me, but there were definitely things that subliminally I was like picking up and receiving,
right,
and like guided my own ideas about relationships and things like that and what I kind of expected. But I always felt like, too, in terms of the financial aspect of things, that it came with caveats and some sense of control in situations. So I think for me, like, it just made me a little uneasy to think about having, like, aspiring to have a relationship where a man, paid for everything or something like that. Like, I guess one, it didn't seem realistic to me because I wasn't
right,
seeing that necessarily. But it also just seemed like, what's the catch going to be here,
right, right.
So,
And I feel like we people want to bring that up. That is a traditional family, but when you go back to the 60s and 70s and you see that women, the household was like that. The household was like that because women were not allowed to work.
right.
I mean, we can't sit here and sit in the 60s and want the 60s life and still live in 2020s. I mean, come on now. One, houses cost way too much money. Cars cost way too much money. Food costs an astronomical amount of money.
Yeah.
So I feel like today, those 1960 traditions of the man pays for everything, it's not really realistic. I've been in a situation where I pay for almost everything.
Hmm.
And yeah, it kind of comes with a sense of control because at the end of the day, if I don't do it, it don't get done. And I don't think anybody in general wants to be in a relationship that feels like a dependent. You know, I think that at the very least, you need to be able to take care of yourself. And if you're in a situation where you can't take care of your own self, then you need to make some improvements with yourself, even in that relationship, because you're now depending on that person.
Yeah.
And it wasn't fun for me. That's all I'm gonna say. It wasn't fun. And you know, when it ended, it was just like a burden off my chest, and I'm sure it wasn't fun for her as well because some arguments went to, well, I'm the one that pays everything. Okay.
Exactly.
If you want to step up, you're welcome to. But
There's like that expression that's like whoever has the power to feed you also has the power to starve you. So it's like if somebody has complete control over the finances, of course, if they decide they want to up and leave because for whatever reason they're tired of, like you said, feeling like they have another dependent, another child to take care of. They're not liking how something is going in the relationship. They can, check up deuces, and then
mm-hmm.
you're out here on your own.
Don't
So
bite the hand that feeds you.
yeah. Do you want to cut to some of the videos that we have?
Yeah. So
Okay, I'm thinking maybe the TD Jakes one. That one kind of well, we can just play it and we can
we'll
discuss.
play it. So,
Okay.
like you said before, today we got social media and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna just play the video.
Yep.
Okay, hold on. Share screen. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, here we go. Ooh. Hold on, y'all. Technical difficulty. It's my first time doing this.
Okay.
Present. Share screen.
And before you play that, I'm just going to read Tiara's comment in the chat. She said, I never saw healthy relationships growing up. Def never saw marriage unless it was on TV. Being raised by a wonderful but emotionally unavailable single man, it caused me to have a lot of issues with intimacy as an adult. I'm basically unlearning those bad habits, and I'm so thankful to have a patient partner. The key for me has been transparent honesty in regards to my childhood and open communication / dialogue. I love that, Tiara.
Yes.
And Tiara is one of my close friends from high school. Love her to pieces. Mm-hmm. Hey, Tiara. But I think that's beautiful because it is, when you don't see that model, it is difficult to like conceptualize it as an adult to understand like how those dynamics should be and what you should expect from your partner and all of those things. So I'm happy to see her growth in that. And I'm so happy for her. She has a wonderful partner now that
that's awesome.
I've met, and he's great. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And Tiara, I gotta say that is the most honest, that's the most honest thing someone can say, because I feel like a lot of us were brought up in situations that wasn't healthy. Maybe. And as an adult, you realize that you have to unlearn the things that you were raised in. Man, what can you say about that? But like she said, thankfully she got a man that is patient and understands that. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah,
very beautiful thing. All right, so I'm going to play a clip.
Okay.
Again, this is not the property of Dayton University. This is not the views of Dayton University. All right, here we go.
To him, sin.
Let's talk about the TD Jakes video.
It's gonna be rough this morning, bro.
Recently, a clip of TD Jakes went viral in which he makes a critique of gender role dynamics in contemporary society.
We are raising up women to be men, and you are not applauded for your femininity. You are applauded in the contemporary society by how tough, rough, nasty, mean, aggressive, hateful, possessive you are, and you are climbing the corporate ladder, but we are losing our families.
And as always, what I'm going to share is less about one person than it is about church culture as a whole. The message was preached on Father's Day of this year and was entitled Real Men Pour In. It was largely about role inflexibility, that both men and women have unique divine designs that when disrupted causes things to fall apart. He said this has been an issue since Adam and Eve.
If Adam had not allowed Eve to pour into him, sin would have never come into the world.
And he connects this patriarchal interpretation of the creation story to contemporary society.
Your self-esteem is compromised when you have to ask your wife for lunch money. When Adam started eating out of his wife's hand, sin came in because the divine order was broken.
There's so much to say on this, but here's a few points. T.D. Jakes said that women are being raised to be men, and these are the traits he goes on to associate with masculinity.
Tough, rough, nasty, mean, aggressive, hateful, possessive.
He then says that women have to create space for men to pour into their lives from their rightful masculine roles. He basically says women have to shrink themselves in order for men to come in and be their leaders. And my question is, why is it the responsibility of women to shrink themselves in order to make space for men? It's because this is not about women being raised to be men or climbing the corporate ladder. It's about control. In the eyes of patriarchy, there can be no relationship without control. Men aren't shying away from marriage and relationships. They want those things. And studies show that they're happier when they have them. That's why they've created entire platforms dedicated to educating and teaching women about their roles. It is women that are opting out of toxicity, control, and suppression under patriarchy. Women are opting out of all the traits Pastor T.D. Jakes associated with masculinity for their own sake. Can I be very clear? Women are not inferior to men and they don't want to be treated as such. Women by and large want partnership. Men under patriarchy want servitude and submission. And that is the disconnect. And this kind of role inflexibility is rooted in white supremacy. Messages like these leave women in the church vulnerable to violence and abuse and create space for men to theologically rationalize that abuse. And as a man whose church was both built and sustained by Black women, T.D. Jakes and others like him need to be far more mindful of their theology and words. Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments and like and follow for more content.
She told me I'd be on the road. Oh, baby, I miss you. I can't wait for you to come home. I flew home with visions.
How do you stop it?
I'm so glad you home.
Oh, I forgot that's the end of it. Sorry. I thought that was the end of it. Okay.
I went back to watching Lifetime Murders. I went in my man cave. I thought about killing her. I thought that would be the right thing to do.
Let's talk about the TD.
Yikes. Yikes.
All right. So
a lot there.
It's a lot to unpack. I mean,
what are your immediate thoughts of?
Oh my gosh! Like, first off, you preached that on Father's Day. Like, I mean, I'm not sure if that's the right message to be preaching on Father's Day, but okay. I guess you want to alert the guys by bashing women. I'm not sure. But it also makes me think like I said, the 1960s. You know, caveman days. I don't know. I don't know what exactly he means by raising women to be men. I mean, is raising a woman to be independent being a man? I'm a little lost.
Yeah, I get kind of confused with that as well. I see a lot of discourse online about women, particularly Black women, being masculine or moving in their masculine energy. I think we spend, and I say we, the royal we, like spend a lot of time online having that discussion about what's masculine, what's feminine, and too masculine, too feminine, things like that. And I don't know. I just feel like the point gets lost in that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I just feel like we're hyper focused on those things. And like the guy pointed out in the video, he was attributing a lot of negative traits to masculinity.
Yes.
So it's like, if this is how you see masculinity in men, I don't know, like as a man, you don't feel any type of way about expressing these views and even attributing them to someone else as well, to women. Like you don't see like that's part of the problem, that these negative traits of aggression and anger and all these things are like, associated with masculinity in the first place. Like, I don't know.
Well, it goes back to like, what do they call it? I forgot what they said. It was a couple of years ago. Toxic masculinity, and I think that because when toxic masculinity first came to as a subject, like I was like, okay, where y'all going with this? Because the example they used was boys are growing up not to cry. Boy falls and he scrapes his knee. He starts crying, and the first thing the mother or the father will say is, "Hey, don't stop crying. Don't be crying over no scar or whatever." Now, that's how we were growing up. Now, is it toxic? Could be, but that's how we were growing up. Now, everything TD Jake said, I mean, I don't want to meet that dude because
Right.
I mean, he don't
And I
sound
think
very pleasant.
and I think those things too about, boys not being allowed to cry. I think the toxicity is in the suppression. It's like
Yeah,
everybody gets hurt.
yeah,
Everybody
yeah.
has feelings. We need to allow men, boys, women, girls, non-binary people to express whatever feelings that they have, period.
I mean, that
Full
goes to
stop.
the mental health things, so that definitely is a situation. So, as a 45-year-old man, I cry at my events, and my fellow football team at Bowie State saw me crying going across the stage. My wedding party saw me crying when we rehearsed the wedding reception. So I cry tears of joy. Okay, I have no
Yeah,
problem
and
crying.
it's nothing wrong with that.
Exactly, you earned it. When you work for it and you earned it, you're going to express something for it. And I don't believe in suppressing it. I
Yeah.
don't believe it. I'm going
And
to
I think
celebrate
when you
myself.
suppress it, it doesn't mean that the feelings don't exist or that they go away. It means that they will come out in other ways. And I think
Mhm.
those other ways can be harmful because while suppressing sad emotions um, is like champion in our society for when it comes to boys and men, anger is applauded. It's like men are allowed to show their anger, they're allowed to show their aggression and things like that. But then
Mhm.
that creates a lot of violence. It creates a lot of
Yes.
situations where other men are not safe from them, women are not safe from them, children are not safe from them. And
Right.
so reinforcing those ideas, I think, is very harmful. And I think that's the toxic part. Darnell said
You
he cries his ass off. Good for you, Darnell.
I'm not trying to say men should be crybabies. Not saying we should be crybabies at all. But one thing I've known about myself is I'm an Aquarius. Okay, Aquarius men, we're like volcanoes. All right, I've learned that. I've saw it. I've done it many times growing up. I will hold something in, not say nothing about it at all, and it will just fester. And then it'll be just today. It would, it's just feathers on top of feathers on top of feathers, and then that last feather hit, and then I'm exploding all of a sudden. I'm bringing up stuff from 2 weeks ago, last month, and I'm mad. So I
Yeah.
learned that is not fair for anyone to deal with. For one, so
Even yourself, you should be allowed to express your thoughts and your feelings in the moment and, to the people that love you and support you and all those things. So
yeah,
anyway, TD Jake said a lot in in that video. It's that ending I forgot about, that little snippet about he
at
wanted
the
to kill his
end,
wife, and I know that was in
I
jest. It
was
was
like,
like,
oh my lord,
yikes.
no.
And to be honest, and this is another discussion altogether, but a lot of times people use religion to further subjugate people, especially women. When in the era of slavery, it was used to subjugate Black people. And so I just think that it's important for me. I believe in a higher power. I believe in God. So I don't want that to come across like I'm dissing people that are religious. I think that's important to ground you as a human being, to, connect with a higher power, to know that there's something above you. Right.
Yes.
But I think it's also important to scrutinize and understand these things as well, and not just take everything
Mhm.
um, at face value, because a lot of times they are used as tools to
Yes.
manipulate people, to oppress certain people, and we have literally seen it
Yeah.
happen,
Yeah.
so I just wanted to make that point, is that you know
Mm.
religion is great, spirituality is great, having the understanding is cool, um but just pay attention to what these messages are actually saying sometimes,
Mhm.
um, and come to your own conclusions, have your own relationships, and your own discoveries about certain things. So
Everything can be abused. You can take the Bible and twist it to what you want to do. That's why we have cults. Exactly why we have cults. I mean, they'll take something that's of religious of the Bible, and they would twist it around to what they want,
Yeah.
And like you said, women and slavery, it's always you're beneath me because it's written in the Bible, and it's like, no, I'm actually not, and hopefully we get out of that, thought, that mindset in general.
Yeah.
Someone.
So let me ask you a question, and then I think we have one more video to play. But let me
Mhm.
ask you a question first. Do you believe in gender roles? Do you think they're necessary?
I believe in gender roles, but I believe that gender roles go best when it come down. It's not set. Like, you will have a gender roles for your relationship. I'm gonna have gender roles for my relationship, and gender roles basically. I mean, at the end of the day, we're a team. That's what my focus is on. Now, do Britt take out the trash? No, she does not take out the trash. Um, do Britt do more cleaning than me? Yeah, she really does. Especially now, since I'm dealing with my surgery.
Mm-hmm.
Certain things I can't do. Um, and in our household, nobody is above anybody. If I come up with a decision, I bring it past Britt first. I have to get her approval before I do something. So, for example, we went. I went and got a new car in October. This is right around the time that we was going on our cruise, and it was really out of nowhere. But I said to myself, hold on, let me let Britt know what's going on. I don't want to just come home with a new car or whatever. So, I told her what was going on, and she says what she always say: "Can you afford it? Is it going to break your pockets?" I
Right.
know, no. Saying honestly, it was like $20 more than I already had. So I was like, newer car. It was what I really wanted. I got the car I wanted back in 2018, and I was a happy man. And I came back home, and she's like, "Oh, this is really nice. When are you going to pack up for this cruise?" So, you know, it works
Yeah.
out. Things work out. I don't leave her out of anything. She is involved in every decision making we make, and we make decisions together. So with me, gender roles. I mean, I'm a little old school, so I open up doors, and I'm a gentleman. I make sure that I'm a gentleman for my wife. That
Yeah.
my wife is treated like a wife. So
Right.
when it comes down to those type of gender roles, she doesn't open the door for herself. She doesn't pull her chair out for herself. And she know the world knows she's my wife. The world
Mhm.
knows she's my queen. And that's pretty much it. I mean, when we have kids, we'll make decisions together because children will turn parents against each other, and we'll raise our child together. And we've had a interesting conversation about college. I don't want my kid to go to a HBCU school because I went to a HBCU school. Went to a traditional school, so she wanted our child to go to a HBCU school. So, I mean, things like that I prepare for. Of course, you'll have some type of disagreements every once in a while in your relationship or in your marriage. But I feel like that's regular stuff.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I mean, I've shared this before on here, so I'm sure it's a surprise to no one that and this just applies to me and just my personal philosophy and belief on how I would like my relationship. So I just want to make that clear that I'm not trying to, project this onto anybody else but myself. But for me, I don't really subscribe to gender roles. Like, are there things that, you know, I would prefer my partner to do? Yeah. Like you were saying, taking out the trash and things like that. Like, cool. That's fine. That is not something that I'm gonna fight and be like, no, I must take out the trash. Like, it's not that deep.
It's
But I
not a deal
think
breaker for you.
my personal philosophy in terms of relationship roles is just that you get in where you fit in. Like, I want somebody to come into my life and be able to do whatever is necessary, not do something because he's a man or expect me to, do most of the household things because I'm a woman, because I'm also a working woman. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like, and I would assume that they would be as well. So, my comfort level would be for us to both pitch in where it's necessary and not gender any specific roles within the household, just because to me, things work better when you work together at it. I think if one person is like solely responsible for one particular part, I think the big things in relationships are finances and household responsibilities. Like, there are lots of other parts to a relationship, but I think it boils down to those two main things. And I don't think that any one partner should solely be responsible for either thing, because I think it can create a lot of tension, a lot of resentment, et cetera, et cetera. Because if you're breaking your back, going out, working every day to provide, that sometimes that's going to get to you. If you have a hard day or something like that, or you want to take a break and you can, and you got to work overtime just to make in, or whatever it is, you're going to be looking at your partner like, I love you, but damn, I'm tired. Or if I'm the person at home that's doing all the household duties, and even though that person may be providing financially, they come home and toss their underwear on the floor or overlook dishes in the sink and things like that, I'm going to feel a way eventually about those things. You know what I mean? So I just think there needs to be as much balance as possible. And like, we've had conversations about this, and I know it's not ever going to be this perfect 50-50 split of anything. But I think that, especially in today's age, it's important to have those conversations as the relationship is developing in that direction. If you're thinking about, okay, we're going to move in together, we're going to share this life together, like, what does that look like on a day-to-day basis? Are you going to help pitch in with chores? What are your finances look like? How are we going to divvy things up in terms of the bills and things like that? So I just think, though, it's important to like put those things out there, but not gender it.
So I have two examples. I have a example with me, what I went through, and I have an example of what I saw one of my friends go through. So with me, my previous relationship, my ex had gotten fired from her job at the time, and now I'm paying all the bills. And I mean, I'm working overtime. I'm working about 11 to 12 hours a day. I'm not lying to you guys. And I will come home to her, scroll up and down Facebook, house dirty, no food cooked, like nothing. You just been sitting here like a 12-year-old on Facebook. So, I mean, it got to me the third time it happened. And I mean, I'm like, the third day, I'm like, look, this is not right, and then I'm getting a whole, oh, we don't see how much I cry when I'm applying for jobs, and I'm at work crying because I gotta work overtime, pay for all the stuff that you're not paying for. All right, so we're crying together. Okay, so that was my example. So fast forward to COVID year, me and Britt went to a friend of mine's house, and another married couple house. And I was talking to the husband, and she was talking to the wife, and it was just, we're both friends. We're all friends. We were just visiting them, and it just so happened to turn to that type of conversation. And the husband at the time wasn't working, and he's a contractor, so he had looked for another contract basically. But all I can say was, me and him were talking, and he was saying, well, I've been working all my life, and and even in my last relationship, my last marriage, I worked the whole time in that marriage, and this new marriage, my wife want to take over, I'm gonna let her go ahead and take over. And I remember telling him, like, your wife didn't volunteer to take over. Like, you're in a situation. She wakes up every morning to work and work hard. I mean, my friend, she works hard, okay? And he's sitting here smoking a hookah. And I'm telling him, like, you don't think that doesn't rub her the wrong way? No,
right.
no.
She grinding it out at work, and he blowing on watermelon mints.
Right, he's
in the living room.
yeah, just doing whatever, man, living your best life. Like, bro, really? So that's what made me really worried about gender roles in relationships today, because I mean, I gotta be injured to not work, okay? And I'm still getting leave. You know what I'm saying? I'm still bringing home some money. One
So
thing,
did you feel more of a way about their situation because he was a man? Like if it was, like you said, you did get fed up with your previous partner, right? But
right?
in the situation with this couple, if she was a contractor and she was just temporarily kind of looking for something else, would it have struck you the same way? Or was it because he's the man?
No, it wouldn't have struck me the same way.
Yeah.
And yes, I'm biased on this one because I look at men. I'm a man, all right, and I know how I will feel if I was in a certain situation or put my wife in a certain situation. So what made me so unease with it was how cool he was about it. Like, if you're
There was
talking
no
to
sense of
another,
urgency. It was
no
like,
sense of
I'm
urgency,
chilling. I'm good.
and
You got it.
you're talking to another man that's saying, "Hey, you might want to check that," and no,
Right.
no, 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 no. This is what I'm gonna do,
Mm-hmm.
and it made me say, "Bro, like, I'm glad he's not a part of my family." Because
Yeah.
I would have pulled my cousin to the side and said, "He's on some divorce papers. This motherfucker got to go." Okay, but each household is different, and and I mean, thankfully now, he's working everything now, so
Yeah, like maybe it wasn't a thing to her, maybe she was like, all right, I mean, I do have it. So you can
yeah,
chill out for a little bit. I don't know. I don't know what their dynamic was. I'm just saying maybe it
right.
wasn't a big
And
thing.
you're
Maybe.
right, and I don't know exactly what it was or if she was cool with it. All I know was talking to him and hearing how cool he was about it made me feel like you really don't care. Like, wow, what kind of household do you come from? Now he came from a 2-parent household,
Right.
which I find very amazed. So
Well, I think since we talked about our history with gender roles and coming up, kind of what we think, the necessity of them now. So we're almost kind of at the end of things. So I guess we need to discuss like where things are in present day in comparison, like looking back at maybe
boy,
previous generations, things like that. So there's one more video, I think it's the third one,
okay.
where a woman discusses just opposing views about that. So if you want to cue that up.
This one?
If you read the Bible, that's the only three
No.
things that women were made for. So you can argue with whoever you want to argue.
Sorry.
But
Hold on.
that one's worth watching.
That was
But
a shake my
if
head
you want
moment.
to be annoyed.
Yeah. All right, hold on.
Yeah.
Raising our women to no, it's no, that's
Should
not
be
it.
number 3.
Here we go.
Specifically,
All right, here we
I
go.
was talking to a friend recently about gender roles and why it feels that these days men and women have very different ideas of what the gender roles should look like in a marriage, right? And we were specifically talking about Muslim, Black, Brown, Arab communities. And she brought up such an interesting point. And she said that the tension is because men, like men, grew up watching their moms do it all, watching their moms cook, clean, do all the housework, and then also work full time, right? And so they look at us and they're like, why can't you?
Oh,
It's person.
Time, right? And so they look at us and they're like, why can't you?
oh no! Come on!
Well,
TikTok.
that's okay.
Okay.
I can kind of summarize the end of her point there.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially, she was saying that because men watch their moms do all of the things, they have that expectation for the women that they're dating, married to, etc., to kind of carry that same thing on. And she was saying for women, they looked at their mothers doing it all as well. And are now like, we don't want to do it all. I'm good. You know what I mean? Like I don't. Because they realize the physical toll, the mental toll, the emotional toll those things took on, their mothers, their grandmothers, etc. So I've heard that point made before, so it's not anything earth shattering or groundbreaking, but I just wanted to kind of like bring that point back to kind of where we are today, where it's like, as much as I respect my mother, my grandmother, my aunts, other women in my life, and appreciate them for what they did do, I don't want to mirror relationships in which I have to work and I have to raise the kids. I got to do most of the housework. I have to remember all of the appointments and birthdays and family occasions and holidays and, coordinate all those things and rally people together. Like, I don't want to do all of the things. I don't. I have zero desire to do that. I want to help out. I want to participate in that because I always want to be an active participant in whatever relationship that I'm in, whether it's my friendships, my romantic relationships, whatever. I want to be active in those, but I don't want to do all of the things.
And you should have to. I mean, forgive me, I have another example, but a friend of mine from back in college, this is like, oh God, 2000 and 2004. He had just gotten married. He had the sweetest wife. Oh my God, the sweetest wife. Okay. And they had gotten their own place and both working. She was a teacher. He was in IT. And I remember going to visit him and he was big mad. Okay. I mean, pissed off. So I get in the car with him. We go driving, go riding around, and he's like, "Oh man, like she's lazy. She don't want to do anything. I come home from work and she don't want to cook or clean or anything like that." And I'm like, I'm listening to him vent, being a friend, let my friend vent, and I'm trying to piece things together. Like, hey, okay, so you're mad that she's not cleaning up or cooking, like to your expectation, but you do know she grade papers. You do know she deal with kids all day long. Like, you don't know what kind of day she's having. And then, after school, she's grading paper. Like, teachers do a lot of work. All right. And shout out to the teachers, shout out to the good teachers that care about our kids, because it's an all day event. And then you come home and you got a grown man act like a kid. Like, so I was like, bro, why ain't you cooking? That's not my job. So to back up a little bit, he's from a 2-parent household, and I'm not 100%. That's why I'm not saying no names. I'm not 100% how his household went. Now I believe it might have been a situation where the wife did everything and her husband just worked. I'm not sure, but of course, his family was his parents was a lot older, and they
more than likely they were a bit more traditional.
Could have been,
Yeah.
So I thought it was hilarious because I said, man, she works harder than you. We're IT. Like, oh yeah, we deal with some people. We deal with grown adults and grown adults act like children as well. But she actually deal with children, and I don't know. I don't know what profession works harder or have such a harder time than education system. So, being an educator, like that is yeah. So, leaves to say they got divorced. And, I just shook my head at him, like, bro, you really ran a good one away.
Yeah, that's why I said it's important to have certain conversations when you're progressing in relationships to see where your partner is with certain things, because to marry someone is to find out they're never going to be a partner to you. Right. They really married you so that, maybe they do love you, but a lot of times I think for people that want this very rigid traditional dynamic in their marriage, it's like it's sounding like you want a servant. Right. What I mean? Like, it's like that takes so much load off of you to not have to worry about cleaning up and how the house is taken care of and feeding yourself and all those things. But then it dumps it on somebody else. And when those things aren't equitable, like I said, not 50-50, but just in an equitable way, where it's like, okay, I'm working late today. My students had finals or something, and I have to spend an additional 2 hours grading things. You take over the meals today. You worry about dinner. And he probably just wasn't the type to ever hear her out on those things. I did want to note a documentary that's on Hulu called Fair Play, and it talks about this idea of gender roles that we're discussing, particularly as it pertains to like the household things. They talk about this idea of like second shift that a lot of women experience, like you were saying with your friend, where they're working a paid job 9 to 5 and then they come home and have to do additional household duties, and it's solely on their shoulders.
Right.
And honestly, when I think about how commonplace that is, maybe not so much nowadays. I think we are starting to progress past that. But to me, that would be the argument against the 50-50 split of like finances, or like or arguing for men paying 100% of the bills, because it's like, if you're going to expect me to work and then come home and work another 4 or 5 hours, then
Right.
you should pay it all. Because really, I'm working, an additional 20 hours a week of unpaid labor.
Right.
If I gotta come home and do all of the things,
that's what it boils
it's not
down
a
to.
volunteer mission, okay?
Oh.
Like, this is a household. So it's called, so I don't know, let me say the name again. It's called Fair Play. It's on Hulu. It's based on a book. And it's just a really interesting, look into those dynamics and how we move forward, how we, change these dynamics. Because I think this show itself really encourages conversation and healthy relationship dynamics. So I think it's important to, like, yeah, we have dialogue about these things and share our experiences, but how do we push past what we see on social media, what we see happening online? Like, at some point, it has to go beyond a conversation, and it's really about doing the work. And unfortunately, because we live in a patriarchy, there's a lot of work for men to do in that regard, of just unlearning those sorts of ideas that, yeah, that's the woman's job. I'm not going to pitch in with X, Y, and Z. That's on you. And really taking the reins in that, so that we can have better relationship dynamics. Because all the bickering and gender wars and conversations that I see online is just like, we're never gonna be free. Like, this doesn't ever seem to be a meeting of the mind. So it's like, I just encourage everybody that's listening and watching to scrutinize some things, to unlearn some things, to challenge yourself, to stretch past what you see on the Shade Room or Spiritual World or Justin LeBoy posts. Go beyond those things and really start to read, look at documentaries, talk to women in your family, talk to your elders, talk to men in your family, and really have fruitful conversations, do real research, and like, let's move beyond all the fodder and all the, all of that online.
Yeah, I think that we need to catch up with the times, for one. Okay. We are all working 8-hour shifts, men and women. Okay. So if you want your woman to come home and work additional 4 hours, then how would you feel coming home and working additional 4 hours?
For free.
For free. Exactly. So
That's
put yourself in your partner's shoes. When you ask them to do certain things when they're tired and you're tired, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, raising kids is going to be the same way. I mean, the baby going to wake up, somebody's going to have to get the baby. Now, whether it's you get the night shift, I get the day shift, but we splitting up these 24 hours, all right?
Yep.
And we're getting sleep in between. I feel like we have to work as a team, and one thing about gender roles is it can be very dangerous, because it makes someone feel like, okay, this is flat out your job. No, it's not, because when you were single, you were doing it. Unless you lived in a pigsty, okay, as
Look,
a
I've
man.
seen that.
Now,
Okay.
now the ones that's living in pigsties, do they typically stay in a relationship? Do you stay with a man that live in a pigsty? Are you
Listen,
inspired to marry a man that live in a pigsty?
listen, I have a quick story about that because
Okay.
I dated someone that I met in my 20s. I say the word dating loosely, but we were involved for a number of years. And it took a while before I actually went to his place. And when I saw it, it was a complete mess. And that was already like, okay, you invited me here and your place is looking like this. I would never invite someone over. It's a difference if somebody stop by and like it's like, girl,
Yeah. Yeah.
I ain't clean up. But you specifically invited me here. And
Yes.
then some years passed, we had kind of been off and on, off and on. And out of anyone that I have dated, he was the most adamant about gender roles. He told me that my domain was in the kitchen and that he needed to handle everything else, that he needed to be the leader
Hmm.
in his household. I'm like, you can't even clean up your place. Like, you can't lead us out of a paper bag. I'm sorry. Like, I'm trying to, it was just funny that he was the one in particular. And I find that a lot when I see certain people online going so hard with these things. It's like, do you even have leadership skills and abilities?
Right.
In your own, just for you,
Right.
just your personal, just you, what you have going on right now. So, yeah, I just wanted to interject that lovely story.
I'm glad you shared that. I'm glad you shared that because all right. So let's look at that for a second. The man want to be the man of the household. He want to be the head of the household, but yet he's living in a pigsty. So
Mm-hmm.
what household are you expecting to be a head
Yeah,
of?
he was
Like,
very adamant. And then he tried it. His argument was also about, well, when you have a company, there's a CEO. So there needs to be a head and all this stuff. And I'm like, I know that we make analogies sometimes just to relate it and help people to understand. But ultimately, I don't want my relationship to be run like a company.
right.
Like, we can get on capitalism and how much I hate capitalism another day, but those systems are by nature like very exploitative. Okay. They're meant to really benefit the people at the top while everybody else is scrambling and working
Exactly.
their asses off.
Yep.
That's how it is. So why would I want my romantic relationship, the place that should be a reprieve from the thing that I have to do because that's what society demands of me? Why would I want my relationship to also look that way? I
Right.
don't want somebody to look at me as a child or dependent if I'm a person that has been, doing things on my own, doing pretty well for myself, living okay. Why, like, there are things that, yeah, I'm not good at and I would need guidance and help in that maybe my partner would be better at or whatever. But infantilizing your partner and being like, I have to run the show, particularly for him when he showed no signs of having any ability to actually do that, it was pretty comical. So
You know, it's funny. I remember the very first time I had a woman come to my apartment, and when I said I cleaned that place up, boy,
Right.
I was like, hold up, give me an hour.
Yeah, you would think
You know
that's
what I'm
how it
saying?
should go, right?
And you know what? I hate to this day. I hate cleaning toilets. I despise cleaning toilets. And my house have 4 of them. So that time, my one bedroom apartment, my first apartment, I cleaned the toilet up. My
Yeah,
mom
you
was
were
like,
cleaning it top to
"Wow,
bottom. This
right."
man, on the other hand, was looking like I thought I had walked into a live taping of Hoarders. I was like, oh, okay, the camera's about to come out, and they got a
So
dumpster out back to just take all this shit away.
so
That has to
no
be the case.
drive to impress you. No drive to impress you. None. I mean, just I
Yeah.
I only want this place to feel comfortable. Like I want, like, most men would clean their place so the woman can say, "Oh wow, you have a nice place. I feel comfortable. I want to stay. I want to sit here and get undressed and just walk around and be." That's a whole other thing. But if
And
I got like
special
dirty
occasions.
clothes and roaches and dishes all in the sink and old food on the stove and whatnot, you could be like, bro, what? First off, your house stinks. Like, come on, man. So I'm trying to understand the logic that this man had when he said, "Well, I'm gonna invite
Andrea
this."
said men that will purposely invite women over to their place just to see if a woman will volunteer to clean. And let me tell you, I'm not.
Oh wow, that's new. I've never heard of that. Wow. Okay.
I will not be that woman. So if any man is watching this and you ever had that thought, I am not the one. Okay, I'm not.
I didn't know they test people like that. That's kind of interesting. That's kind of interesting. So
That's wild and
if you
crazy
were to
and
fall
deranged
for
and
that,
unhinged. And if you
yeah.
do that, you should probably seek some sort of help.
Now if you were to fall for that,
Psychologytoday.com. Find a
are you
therapist.
now his
You're crazy.
maid? And I mean, if you fall for that, are you now his maid? Like,
Well, I definitely I have a friend that dated someone. They didn't live together, but she said that he would expect for her to come to his place and clean. I was like, okay, like after you've been there for like a few days or something, and like just clean up after. She was like, no, just clean up after him.
oh, wow.
Okay, cool.
Wow.
They're no longer together, so that's how that
Not-
works. Yeah.
So
Anyway, maybe we should wrap it up. But do you have any last thoughts on this gender role conversation?
I feel like this conversation is just one of many. I mean, sadly, we have been raised in times where we have so many issues, and it starts in our household, and it continues as we become adults, and we start expecting things that we're not even able to do. And then social media is out here, and you got clowns out here just saying whatever. You know, I think that we need to go back to uh, looking at the other person, looking at what we're bringing to the table and what we're asking other people to do. Okay, if you don't want to do it, then why would this person want to do it? What are you bringing to this other person's life? Am I making your life easier, or am I making your life harder? And that goes with the gender role thing, but that's in relationships in general. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it kind of falls with the gender roles where, a man is a protector, the man is supposed to be the provider, but in today's, I mean, in today's age, I mean, you got so many women that make more than, you got so many sisters, black women that make more than black men. And it's like, okay, are we even put the provider anymore? But I stand by, and I truly believe that when you work on your relationship as a team, it can work.
Yep.
Look at what you're putting your partner through.
Absolutely.
That's my last thought on it.
Amen. Yeah, I second all of that. What you said. I think working as a team is essential. Really looking at your significant other as a partner and not
Right.
someone that is beneath you, below you, subservient to you, is really important for the health and the happiness of the relationship in general. And I just wish that more people took heed to that and unlearn some things that we've been taught. In terms of, like I said before, with the religious aspect, with societal things, like, and the thing is, we're all conditioned in the same environment, men and women. So there are women out here that, want to adhere to that because they think that's what is necessary, but they end up being, feeling neglected or burnt out or overwhelmed and all of these things, but they accept it because they're just like, that's just the way it is. It doesn't have to be that way.
No,
I think that we can imagine a world where there's more equity. There's so many systems and things that we can't change in our lives, and I think that romantic relationships and how we relate to one another we certainly can. It takes work. It takes people to be very deliberate and direct about that task of like, hey, maybe I grew up learning some things that were a little misogynist, a little misogynistic, things that were, maybe not right, but I can unlearn these things. I can work together with somebody. I can be, cooperative and collaborative in my relationship. And it doesn't have to be this hierarchy there. So I just challenge people to do that. I want to shout out that documentary again on Hulu, Fair Play. Check that out. Another book I wanted to shout out is The Will to Change by Bell Hooks. She's a Black feminist. I know that's a dirty word to some people. Oh my gosh. But she has written some books that are life changing. So The Will to Change, Men, Masculinity, and Love is awesome. All About Love, her other book, is really awesome. So I encourage people to actually just do the work. I think it's very easy to swipe on social media and to see things and hot takes and to feed into things and be like, yeah, and champion these things that are really just toxic and harmful to our community. But yeah, read a book, open a book, watch a documentary, educate yourselves, for real. So anyway, I also want to shout out Brittany and Charles. Thank y'all for letting us, take over the platform for the day. And we hope we did you proud in this space and this conversation. And we encourage everybody that's here to, share it. People that will watch on the replay or listen in the podcast, we thank you for supporting Dayton University. I know they have many great things coming up. So make sure you subscribe and stay tuned and keep supporting.
And buy the merch.
Yes, merch. Absolutely. Yes. Well, thank you, Darius, for this conversation. You're awesome. So thank you so much.
Anyah, you're amazing. Okay. And I will always say, since I first met you, I cannot put my finger on why you are such an awesome woman. Like you are it. They need to make a documentary on you. Okay. Just pick your brain. I'm gonna tell you, this sister right here, y'all, she's it. So I'm gonna say she is it. So, but thank you all. Thank you all that attended. Thank you all that listened. And let's just keep having this discussion.
All right. Thank you.
Till then.
Good night.
Yeah. Good night.